B'Shem Hashem na'aseh v'nasliyah. So, I'd like to talk about a little bit of the message that Pesach has, Passover has, for us. Because even though right now, date-wise, we are after Pesach, actually the day after Pesach, but we are in the cycle of the Omer, which we count every day. We count the Omer up every day, right? Like today is the 8th day of the Omer, and so on and so forth. We count until how many? 49. We count 49 days until the receiving of the Torah, until which we call Shavuot. Right? On Shavuot, the Jews received the Torah at Har Sinai, and it was 49 days after the Exodus from Egypt, which we have Pesach. But in order for us to understand what it meant to receive the Torah at Har Sinai, in order for us to understand what it meant for us to become a people, for us to become the Jewish people, a Yid, a Jew, a Jude. How many other languages can I use for Jew? Yahudi.
2 more.
Sephardi.
Jahud. Yahud. 3 more. So in order for us to understand what it means, we have to kind of take a step backwards, step back to see what is the roots of Judaism and what are the important factors of the Jewish religion. And as soon as we understand the important factors of the Jewish religion, we'll have a better understanding of what we're doing in the Omer, counting up to the receiving of the Torah, of becoming the Jewish nation. Right? So we start at Pesach, we end off at Shavuot. Right? So the Baal Chovot HaLevavot is a sefer. The Chovot HaLevavot says the following. Guys, this is really cool. This got me, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. This is how the Chachamim, without schooling or degrees in mathematics and stuff, figured things the way they saw it. Here's what he says. He says, in the universe, on earth, let's put on earth. On earth, the physical earth that we live on, with the kitty cats and the mice and the rats and, people and trees and stuff. Our universe, right? Things that are more extremely dependent on are more to be found. Things that are not as much dependent on as living beings are less easily found or less accessible. What do we mean? For instance, we need oxygen. How many minutes can we go without oxygen? I don't know. How long is the longest anyone has ever gone without oxygen?
I think like 1 minute.
No. I think the longest anyone has ever gone without oxygen, I think these races they've gone to like 5-6 minutes. I know people that have gone for like 5-6 minutes. They have contests, So like 5-6 minutes max, you could go without oxygen, right? So oxygen, as extremely important it is, and as needed as it is, it's everywhere. Right? Oxygen is everywhere. It's like Ma'aseh Hashem. God created the world this way. The more you need something, the more accessible it is for you. Then, water. Water is also an essential thing for a person to live, a person, an animal. How many days can you go without water? I think 3. Right? 3 days without water. So water is very essential for life, but it's not as essential as oxygen, so it's a little less accessible. You got the faucet today, but back then it was the well, you had to dig a well, or rivers, or the ocean. Right? And you go down the line. Food. How many days can a person go without food? 7, I think?
A week, yeah.
I think a week without food. So a week without food. So food is also an essential thing for a human being, for even animals. And therefore, as much as it's essential, it's not as essential as water. And therefore, it's not as accessible as water. You have to plant. it has to grow, and so on and so forth. Right? Following his gist so far? By the way, before water actually comes sleep. You guys know that? Person cannot go 72 hours without sleep. After 72 hours, if you do not sleep, if that's possible for you not to pass out, if someone's there the entire time, making sure you're awake, like these torture chambers and stuff, a person can die. That's how important sleep is. It's even more crucial than water for a person. Never thought you'd hear that in your life, huh? Like, all-nighters, yay, we're going to party all day long and all night. Yeah, let's see you party for 72 hours. I bet you can't do it. I've never heard of anybody dying for not sleeping, but I'm sure it's happened. So, you understand what the Chovot HaLevavot is saying. Chovot HaLevavot is saying, God's mercy works in a way, the way He has created the world it's beautiful. It's something we never thought about. So it's something we take for granted, right? But you have to understand, it works perfectly. The more there is a need for something in life, the more accessible it is. So therefore, even in other things like metal is more needed on earth because you build things with metal, right? It's more accessible. Gold is not as needed as metal. Gold is a luxury, so it's less found, so it's less accessible. As much as women would like you to believe that gold is more important than oxygen, it's not. It's actually below metal, right? Then comes diamonds. Diamonds, less necessary. Even less accessible than gold, right? So hear this, guys. Now, y'all with me? Listen to this. The Saba Mikelm, Zechet Tzadik Revacha, one of the Chachamim of past generations, he says the following. He says, from the words of the Chovot HaLevavot, we can deduce something spectacular. Which is, we know, there is a concept in Judaism that everything in spirituality mirrors physicality, and vice versa. Everything in the physical world mimics the spiritual world. Right? Like for us, for instance, we have a spiritual mirror image, so to speak, of ourselves in the heavens that we are supposed to, after 120 years, live up to. You can imagine, like, let's say our mitzvot, the deeds that we do on this earth, build our physical body. Let's say this world is a gym. And the mitzvot are your dumbbells and your treadmills and all the heavy duty stuff. Right? So in heaven, there is an image of you with huge muscles, magnificent body, but you're put into this earth a puny little twig. And with the mitzvot, you have to bring your body to match that mirror image of you in heaven. After 120 years, when you go, God will show you, here's what I hoped for you. Here's what you were supposed to look like. Everything I gave you in your life on earth was to help you look like this. Let's see what you look like. Understand? So much so that Chachamim, some commentaries say, part of hell in Judaism, part of going to Gehinnom is the embarrassment the person feels when they see their potential mirror image. Imagine a person after 120 years goes up to heaven. You know, he was, horse jockey. Right? And then after 120 years he goes up and he was the best horse jockey you could possibly get. People won lots of money on this dude. And he goes up really happy, and then God shows him his mirror image. You were supposed to be the, let's say, if it even mattered, you were supposed to be a king. And that mirror image has like a crown and a thing and everything. But you chose to ride a horse. You were supposed to have the stallion horse of a king, You chose to have a racehorse. How bad does that person feel? And that, Chachamim say, part of hell, part of Gehinom for a person, that's what it is. The shame, the embarrassment that a person feels, the neshama feels like, that's what I was supposed to do? That's what my life was supposed to be like, and this is what I spent my life like? You know, Harav Ovadia Yosef, we all know Rav Ovadia Yosef's famous story. Rav Ovadia Yosef, when he was a kid, at a young age, his parents owned a supermarket. His parents owned a supermarket, and at a young age, they pull young Ovadia out of yeshiva, out of his school, for him to help at the supermarket because they had competition open up nearby. And they no longer could afford to have their son in school. Believe it or not, some of us today get free trips to Israel, and they still have issues with, like, I don't know what date to choose. I don't know. It might not fit my schedule. I don't know. I have to check. I have to see. Might have to do a manicure that day. You know? But those days, people couldn't even afford to leave their kids in school. In yeshiva, people that cared about Torah couldn't leave their kids in yeshiva. So they pull Ovadia out and they leave him at the supermarket to do deliveries for them. It was like the thing then, it was a new thing to do deliveries. And the new place, I think, had deliveries. So they were losing business to the new place. So they bring Ovadia. And the Rosh Yeshiva, the head of the yeshiva, notices that Ovadia is not there 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Where's Ovadia? So he goes to the home of Ovadia's parents, and he asks, and they say, Kvod Harav, I'm so sorry that we got you to come all the way here, but yeah, this was our situation. We had to bring Ovadia out. So he says, what? You need a delivery man? So you take the kid out of school, you make him your delivery man? Yeah, we have to do it. What are we going to do? We can't afford it. So he says, okay, I'll make you a deal. I'll be your delivery man. Send Ovadia back to yeshiva. Now this is the Rosh Yeshiva. A very important figure. So they go, Kvod Harav, please don't talk like this. Please don't put us in this situation. He says, no ifs, no buts about it. Here early in the morning tomorrow to make deliveries. Goodbye. He leaves early in the morning. The next day he's at the store. Okay? Give me the first box, I'm delivering. Like, Kvod Harav, please don't do this in front of everybody. Please, we're so sorry. He says, no ifs, no buts. I'm making deliveries. You said you need a delivery man. I want to work. What's your problem? I want to work. Not too old for it. I want to work. Send Ovadia back to school. So they go, okay, you know what? Forget it. Okay, take Ovadia back to school. He can stay in school. We'll figure something else out. Okay? That Ovadia became Harav Ovadia Yosef Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh V'Racha. That had over 1 million people go to his levaya. One of the biggest levayas in history after Moshe Rabbeinu. That's what the news reported. Never like it. That's who he became. So when he was giving one of his honorary speeches, when he finished one of his Sefarim, Harav Ovadia Yosef, when he finished one of his Sefarim, he was giving a speech. He took his Sefer and he said, if my parents would have kept me in that supermarket, what would have happened? When I would have gone to heaven after 120 years, you know what hell would be? HaKadosh Baruch Hu would hold up this Sefer and go, Ovadia, you recognize this? And I would say, no. And he would say, you were supposed to write this. And here's all the other ones you were supposed to write. What did you do? And that would be Gehinam. That's the neshama feels. What it was supposed to accomplish and didn't, that becomes real Gehinam. Right? So on earth, the physical things that we need more than anything else is more accessible. In spirituality, the Saba Mikam says, in spirituality is the same thing. It's the same deal in spirituality. What our spiritual bodies, what our neshamot, what our spiritual selves need the most, and is most crucial to our neshamot, is more accessible. And it needs to be done more frequently. But the things that our neshamot don't need as frequently, obviously are not as essential as daily as others. And he brings examples. He says, for instance, we have Shabbat. We have to keep Shabbat. We have to celebrate the Shabbat. Shabbat comes once every 7 days. Right? So it's crucial. Shabbat needs to be kept. It's crucial, but it's not daily. It's every 7 days. You have Rosh Chodesh, right? Blessing the moon. Rosh Chodesh is once a month. It's crucial. It needs to be done, but it doesn't need to be done every day. It's once a month. You have the Ma'adim, once a year. Right? You have the mitzvah of, let's say, Brit Milah. It's only Bizmano. When you have a son, Be'ezrat Hashem, you have a Brit Milah. But there is one mitzvah that is day and night. And we had it the night of the Haggadah. What mitzvah do we have that is every single day, morning and night? Needs to be repeated every day, every night. Mitzvah of Shema. Why do we say Shema? Why does Hashem tell us in the Torah to say Shema 3 times a day? There's one aspect of Shema that makes Shema as important as it is.
To remind us that there's only one God.
To remind us that there's only, yes, but more than that. Yetziat Mitzrayim.
That you're Jewish.
That you came out of Egypt and God took us out of Egypt. Remembering that God took us out of Egypt is crucial for our neshama. So much so that it's like oxygen in physicality. Needs to be done every single day, 3 times a day. It's a little puzzling, but once we go through to understand why it's so crucial, we'll understand it's not a puzzle at all. It makes 1,000% sense that Hashem ordained it this way. But we have to understand, Zechirat Yetziat Mitzrayim, remembering the exodus from Egypt, according to this formula, if we're saying more important things, more essential things are more accessible and need to be done on a regular basis, then according to that formula, remembering that we had the exodus from Egypt is crucial. True or not? So far so good? Understood? Do we understand exactly what we're talking about? Good. Now we have to understand, why is it that Zechirat Yetziat Mitzrayim, remembering the exodus from Egypt, is so important? Why is it so important? So much so that we read in the Haggadah. What does the Haggadah say? In the Haggadah it says, Amar Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Rabbi Elazar, the son of Azariah, says, Harei ani keven 70 shana velo zachiti shete'amar Yetziat Mitzrayim balelot. I am like a 70-year-old man, but I never had the zechut, I never had the merit to prove to others that Yetziat Mitzrayim, the remembering of the exodus from Egypt, needs to be said at nights also. Until Ben Zoma came and he made the drasha, he made it clear that the pasuk says, Leman tizkor et yom setecha me'eres Misraim kol yemei hayecha. That you shall remember the exodus from Egypt all the days of your life. Kol yemei hayecha. It should have said yemei hayecha. Your life, your entire life. Kol yemei hayecha. Ben Zoma says, yemei hayecha, the days of your life are for the days. Kol yemei hayecha, halelot. The fact that it says kol, the word kol, which means all, that indicates even at nights, night and day. And we have it smack in the middle of the Haggadah. Why do we need that? Why do I need in the Haggadah for it to tell me, you need to say Yetziat Mitzrayim every day and every night? Why is it so essential? Reminds me of a story. Rav Yisrael Meir Lau, I've mentioned his name many times, no? You guys heard when I told you about his book, Out of the Depths? I advise everybody to buy this book, Out of the Depths. It's by him, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Lau. It's on Amazon. You can buy it. It's also on audiobook. You could get the audiobook. And this book is his story out of the Holocaust. He was a 7-year-old boy when he survived the Holocaust. He was liberated by the American army. And he writes his horror story of what went on and how he saw his family perish. Only him and his little brother, his older brother, survived. His mother, another brother, his father were killed. So, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Lau, I don't think he brings this story in his book, but someone else said it on his behalf that had worked with him in Eretz Yisrael, in the beginning, the formation of the state of Israel. See, when Israel became a state, it became a state which welcomed all Jews from all over the world. That was Israel's theme. Israel's theme was, now we have, Baruch Hashem, we have Eretz Yisrael now. So wherever you are, come, let's build our country. So Jews from all over the world started coming. You know the time of the Shah, when it became shaky in Iran, when Khomeini was about to take over in Iran, El Al had free flights. They started packing flights in, full flights, taking Jews to Israel. Free flights. People had their rugs and their luggages on the plane with them. That's how packed they used to make it. And they took planes and plane loads of Jews to Eretz Yisrael. Right? And so too with other countries. Ethiopia. You know how many Ethiopian Jews came from Ethiopia, Baruch Hashem? Fled the atrocities that are happening towards them. And they live in Eretz Yisrael today. Russia. You know how many Jews fled the Russian cruelty that was happening towards Jews? No one in the world, no country in the world was as successful as Russia was to break Jewry as Russia did. Do you guys know that? No other nation in the world was ever as successful as Russia to break Jewry down.
Break what?
Judaism. Jews in Russia, there are so many Jews in Russia that have no idea they're Jewish, or they practice nothing. You don't hear of any countries that have Jews that don't even know what a Brit Milah is. In Russia was the only place that was ever successful to do that to Jews. You know how? By taking them from their parents at a young age and taking them to the Russian army for 25 years. You do that long enough, there is no Judaism left. They have to serve in the army for 25 years. So the kid's pounded in his mind, and for 25 years straight, all the other ideologies, you don't come out as a Jew. I had friends that, I had a friend of mine that had his Brit Milah when he was 13 years old, when he came to Brooklyn with his family. His brother had his Brit when he was 21. His father had his Brit when he was 52. They didn't have a Brit. Can you imagine? Can you imagine a Jewish family not having even a Brit Milah because they couldn't? First of all, it wasn't allowed for a lot of people. Second of all, even if it was, they were so long gone already, they had broken down the traditions so much that people just didn't do it. So, Jews from Russia also started coming. Now, Russia wasn't only cruel to the Jews. It was also not the best place to live for a lot of people, right? So what happened, out of Russia, unfortunately, there were others that wanted to find refuge in a country that's welcoming them. So a lot of Russian people also came to Israel that weren't Jewish. But in order for them to get free passes, easy pass in, they would pose as Jews. And this happened from a lot of countries, but a lot of it happened from Russia. Because Russia had a massive surge of immigrants in Israel, right? Some of which were not Jewish. So what Israel needed to do, the court system, the Jewish courts in Israel, what they needed to do was, they needed to have a system of how to be able to tell who's Jewish and who's not. Because it causes a huge problem. You know, when you want to get married in Israel, you have to go through the Jewish court to get married. You know, just like over here, you go through the court system to have your marriage license here. Over there, you have to have a marriage license from the Rabbanut in Eretz Israel. So when you want to get your marriage license, okay, who's your dad? Who's your mom? Where's their ketubah? Who are you? Where do you come from? People have to know who you are. Right? I even had problems in Eretz Israel. I had problems in Israel proving that I'm Jewish. You understand? Like back in when I had I had a different kind of a passport, and with that passport I needed a visa. My visa expired, my student passport. My visa expired in Israel, so I had to go to the embassy to get my visa renewed. And at one point, the embassy would ask you to bring a letter from a synagogue or a yeshiva that knows you that says you're Jewish. At the point that I was there at that time, they canceled that. They weren't asking for those anymore. They weren't asking for any letters. All you had to do was come and say, my name is this, I'm Jewish, my mother is Jewish, and I'm from so-and-so yeshiva. You can call the yeshiva. They would call the yeshiva and they would give you your visa. When I went, they asked me, where are you born? They looked at my passport. You were born in Iran? What's your last name? Sakhai. Okay, bring a letter. I'm like, I thought we didn't need a letter. Yes, you do. Bring a letter. Okay. I bring a letter from Or Sameach. Right? Look at it. No, not good enough. For various reasons, we're not accepting letters from Or Sameach. Okay. Who do you want a letter from? I bring you a letter from this organization. So finally, I got a letter from LA, from the shul next door that knew me. Send them a letter. And I never forget her phrase. She looked at it, she's like, okay, I can't say no, but, you know, how do I really know you're Jewish? I'm like, what do you mean? You know? My entire family's Jewish and stuff. Okay, yeah, okay, but your last name Sakhai, what kind of last name is that? I'm like, it's like, what did you, she's like, and this was the funny part. She goes, if your last name was something like Goldberg or Silverman or something, it would be Jewish. I'm like, when did Goldberg and Silverman become Jewish last names? You know? That's how uneducated she was, right? And then she asked me, I remember she asked me, why are you going back to the States? I said, I'm going to get married, right? And instead of saying, oh, Mazal Tov, she goes, yeah, where is she from? I'm like, from Iran. How do you know she's Jewish? I'm like, what do you care? She's not here for a visa. You give me my visa.
I always do that.
You know?
Always.
So it's like, all of a sudden she becomes the caring mother, right? So, Israel's government needs to be like this. At certain points, they need to be like this because Jews have a certain procedure you have to go through to get your credentials, and others go through a different procedure. So Rav Yisrael Meir Lau was at the Bet Din at that time. At a certain point, he was in the court, and a Russian boy, comes to get his letter that he's Jewish. You know, it's like getting your citizenship. You know that you're Jewish. So the procedures was they ask for a witness, who knows you, who doesn't know you, where do you come from, what city, what languages do you speak. So he comes and he says, listen, I don't have any witnesses. I have a neighbor that knows me, but I don't have any family members. And I have an old mother that lives back in Russia. She's very old. I couldn't even bring her with me. So it's just me. So he says, well, how do I know that you're really Jewish? So, you know, do you speak any Hebrew? No. Do you read any Hebrew? No. So he decides to interview the neighbor. He says, did you bring your neighbor with you? He says, yes, he's here. So he says, please step outside. So the guy stepped outside. The neighbor comes in, and he starts talking to the neighbor. So he says, listen, do you know this person's Jewish? He says, yes. He says, how do you know? He says, there's one thing that I always remember from his mother that I believe that only a Jew would do. That's what I know. So he says, okay, man on me, what's up? So he says, his mother used to work very, very hard for pennies. Literally pennies. Single mom. She was one of the hardest working women we've ever seen. But we realized that what she would do was, when she would make money, half of what she would make per day, she would go and buy one cigarette with it. One cigarette. See how hard those days was? Especially in Russia, one cigarette was a lot. One cigarette, not a pack. One cigarette. And she would save that one cigarette. The rest of the money would go for food or whatever else they needed in the family. Right? So we were always curious. We always asked our friend, like, what's with these one cigarettes? And then we found out once that she would save these cigarettes the entire year. And then at the end of the year, she would go sell the cigarettes in our community for more, because you couldn't find cigarettes in our community. She would make more money, and she would buy flour with the cigarettes to make matzah for our holiday Pesach. She would sacrifice her money and her time to buy matzah for Pesach. She would save the entire year. So the Rav says, can you bring the boy back in? So the boy comes back and goes, do you have any contact with your mother? She says, sometimes I can phone in here and there and she'll pick up the phone. She says, arrange it. So it takes a while. He phones and gets the mother on the phone. He says, I'd like to talk to your mother. Rabbi Yisrael Merilau picks up the phone and says, ma'am, I want to tell you that you are more religious than me, a Rav, sitting here in the Bet Din in Israel. So she says, Rabbi, you're making fun of me. He says, I'm not. I'll tell you why you are greater than I am. I celebrate Pesach once a year. You celebrated Pesach every day of the entire year when you saved pennies to buy cigarettes every day so that you can buy matzah. So you can buy flour and make matzah at the end of the year. You celebrated Pesach every day. I did only once a year. The importance of remembering the Exodus, the importance of Yetziat Mitzrayim, which we celebrate entire Pesach for. You know why we do it? It's our oxygen. Because if you and I don't know where we come from, if we don't know what happened before we became a nation, if we don't know all the miracles that happened for us, then it doesn't even start. Then we don't receive the Torah. Because there is no Jewish nation to receive the Torah. If you don't know the core of your being, mahuti, it's within you. If you don't know that, then nothing else starts. There's no Na'aseh v'Nishma, there is no the Ten Commandments, none of that. Because you don't know who you are first. So in order for you to understand where you began, you know where we began? Yetziat Mitzrayim. You know what Yetziat Mitzrayim was for us? You know, in all of our tefillot, in Kiddush, you know, when we make Kiddush on Friday nights, what do we say? Next time, pay attention. We say, Zecher Lisiat Mitzrayim. Right? In the remembrance of the Exodus from Egypt. It's one of the most mentioned lines in Judaism. Zecher Lisiat Mitzrayim. What are we trying to do? We're proclaiming God's sovereignty on earth. We're proclaiming God's power and kingdom on the universe. So I ask you, if you wanted to proclaim, if you had a group of people that you wanted to proclaim God to them as the leader of the world, as the creator of the world, what would you say? God is what? The God of what? The God of the world, the God of the universe, the creator of all, the creator of you, the creator of you, creator of me, creator of trees. Wouldn't you proclaim him as that? So shouldn't we at Kiddush, instead of saying, the God that took us out of Egypt, shouldn't we say, the God that created us? Shouldn't we say the God that created the world? Isn't that more powerful? Why do we proclaim God to the world as the God that took us out of Egypt? Who's your God? The God that took me out of Egypt. What do you mean? So who's the God that created the world? Same God. So why don't you just make it even bigger? Just say the God that created the world. Didn't Avraham Avinu do that? So why don't we do the same? Why do we go as God that took us out of Egypt? You know why we call God the God that took us out of Egypt? You know why Yetziat Mitzrayim is so important to us? Listen guys, because I'm going to give you a key right now to Judaism that a lot of people do not have. A lot of Jews are confused when it comes to this. And I'm going to clarify something for you right now. It's going to become so clear, you won't even see it no more. That's not good enough though. No. So, why? See, we the Jews, if I ask you, are we a nation of faith? What would you say? What would you say? Are we a nation of faith? Mm-hmm. Is that how should I put it? Is that a essential pillar of our religion? Faith?
No.
Who said no? Why not?
We have empirical evidence.
There has to be
empirical evidence.
Empirical evidence. Why?
We have miracles to note.
What?
We have miracles. The splitting of the sea.
And what's the difference between us and others?
They don't have these things.
Okay. So let's elaborate on what he said right now. If you look up the definition of faith in the dictionary, you know what you would get? What's the definition of faith? The definition of faith goes something like this in a dictionary. Believing in something with no evidence blindly. That's the definition of faith. Having faith. Having faith is believing in something without having any evidence, blindly. That's faith. Like people tell you, have faith, my friend. Have faith. Everything good. Right? Have faith. We don't go like that. You know what we believe in? We have a belief system. You know what a belief system is? You know what belief means? Belief means you believe something on certain amount of evidence. When something has enough evidence to back it up, you believe it. Like if I say, I'm going to punch you in the face, since you've seen me punch other people in the face, you'd be like, I got enough evidence, he might punch me in the face. Right? Right. You just said right? Well, when did I ever punch anybody in the face? Why are you saying right? Why do I say we go on evidence? Someone could ask you, someone could ask you though, don't we say that the Jewish nation, when they came to Har Sinai, to the Mount of Sinai to receive the Torah, didn't the Jewish nation say something like, Na'aseh v'nishma? And the Jews said to God, we will do, and then we will listen. Which was trying to say to God that, listen, without you even commanding us, we'll do whatever you want. We don't need to see nothing. We'll do whatever you want. Eyes closed. Yes, sir.
Because they've seen these miracles before.
Uh-huh. But that happened after we saw magnificent miracles. We saw the 10 plagues in Egypt. And those 10 plagues, it wasn't just the 10 plagues. It was like loads and loads of other miracles that were happening during those plagues. And then we came out of Egypt. The entire ocean opened up for the Jewish people. After that, we were ready to say, okay, God, okay. I believe you now. That's how you're Jewish. You want to be Jewish? You never take anything without evidence. That's why in the Jewish religion, questions are welcomed. Not only welcomed, if you don't ask questions when you're learning Torah, there's something wrong with the way you're learning Torah. Because the Torah needs you to ask questions in order for you to learn. You know why? Because the Torah has enough guts to tell you, I have the answers. We have all the answers. Nothing can break that. Because we have enough evidence that all of it is true. Everything in life goes on evidence. But this religion, the Torah, has more evidence than anything else. And the evidence came from the Exodus. It all came from Yetziat Mitzrayim. So that really, you know what that did for us? Yetziat Mitzrayim was our proclamation of God being the creator. You know why? Because I need to know that He's the creator. In order for me to know that He's the creator, I need to see His miracles. And we did at Yetziat Mitzrayim. And when we saw that, the way I proclaim God as the creator is the God that took me out of Egypt. You know why? Because that's what I saw. What I didn't see, I can't say that. I wasn't there during creation. But you know what? I did see God manipulate all of the universe like no God can. And therefore I can proclaim Him as the God that took me out of Egypt, which means the God that created the world. And you know how God brought all the Makot on Mitzrayim? All the 10 plagues that were on Egypt. You think it was just random? God proved to the entire world that He's the creator of the entire universe through the Makot. Let's go through them. The Makah of blood. All the rivers, all the waters turned into blood. You had an Egyptian get a cup of water. It's water. And as soon as he would pour it in his mouth, he's swallowing blood. That bad. With that Makah, you know what God proved? I control all the waters. I control water. The Makah of lice. Lice, where does lice come from? But where it comes from is from dirt. He said, I control the earth. When the people got boils and diseases, and the animals died of diseases, God said, I control disease and sickness. When locusts attacked, God was saying, I control the winds and every flying being in it. When animals attacked, God said, I control nature and all the animals. Hail, God said, I control the weather. Clouds, rain, it's all me. Then, what do we leave out? Tzfardeim. When the frogs and the alligators attacked, God said, I control all sea creatures. So with all the Makot that hit Egypt, it wasn't just to punish the Egyptians. It was also to show Jews and Egyptians and everyone else in the world who the Creator is. God, through the Makot, through the 10 plagues, God said to the world, I control it all. The wind, the earth, the water, everything, animals, it's all mine. So when we do Zechirat Yetziat Mitzrayim every day, when we remember the Exodus from Egypt every day, you know what we're really saying? We're the children of the Creator. The Creator of the entire universe. That's who I am. I need to keep my head high and understand who I am. I am a chosen person. As a Jew, I'm a chosen person of the chosen nation. Whose nation? The God that took me out of Egypt. Who is that? The Creator of the universe. But you don't need to say the Creator of the universe. You know why? Because the moment you say, the God that took me out of Egypt, it encapsulates all of it together. Some people ask, well, God did all those miracles for those people, so they knew He's the Creator. Where's my miracle? Why isn't this turning into blood? You want to show me you control the water? Turn my coffee into blood. Right? It's a valid question. Yeah, like I said, you're right. We didn't do anything wrong. But you see, God's Makot, the plagues didn't just come to punish the Egyptians. It also came to show other people that He's the Creator. There were people that weren't getting punished around the world.
Questioning Him, though. If they didn't question Him,
No, there were people that weren't questioning Him. The Jews didn't question Him.
But they didn't turn their water into blood. They didn't turn their water into blood.
Yeah, but they saw the Egyptians' water turning into blood.
Yeah, that's because
They saw the animals attacking the Egyptians. So they saw the miracles happening. They saw nature take a turn like never before. Right? That was happening. So, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, the Salanter Rav, he was traveling one time, when he was traveling the world, he would stay at a certain home. And in this home, it was a home, obviously, that he trusted, because Rabbanim would go only to people's inns. It was an inn, a Jewish inn. That's how they have it those days. They would only go to people's homes that can be trusted. In kashrut, so it's kosher food and everything. So he was staying at a certain person's house. After one of his lectures, he comes back home, and he sees from behind the window that the guy that he's staying by is not even wearing his kippah. This guy used to be a guy that's religious. He would have pellet and everything. It's all gone. He doesn't even have his kippah on. And as soon as the rabbi knocks on the door, the guy realizes the rabbi's coming. Oh my gosh. He runs to the back room, puts his kippah back on, puts his jacket on, looks like a nice Jew, comes and opens the door. Rabbi, how are you? Please, come on in. So the rabbi's like, listen, Jonathan. Let's call him Jonathan. He was Jonathan, now he wants to call it Jonathan. Or he was Eliyahu, and he wants to be called Elijah now, right? So he says, let's sit down, let's have a talk. So he says, okay. He says, okay, what's wrong? I can tell that you're gone. I can tell that you've lost your faith. Tell me what happened. I want to know. Right? So he says, Rabbi, to tell you the truth, you're right. You're right. I've kind of been shaky for a while. Didn't want to show it to you because I knew you would probably not like it. But it's been 6 months now. So he says, what happened? So he says, look, Rabbi. This guy came to our house, an atheist. A complete atheist. A Jew, but an atheist. He was at the inn. And Friday night we were making kiddush. And he starts laughing at us. He says, making kiddush, what are you doing? What are you saying? Babbling stuff on wine? Who babbles stuff on a drink? What are you doing? You guys are crazy. So I kept saying, please have respect. This is my inn. It's our food. Can you just have respect? He said, listen, it's not about respect. I just can't see people being so dumb. You think God cares if you wash your hands like this, or 3 times here and 3 times? You think God cares if you drink your wine without blah 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 baruch atah, whatever you say on the wine? Please give me a break. So this atheist guy, after making fun of me, he says, "Okay, I'll prove it to you. I'll prove to you that God doesn't care. Let's do a demonstration." So he says, I'm going to go buy a big piece of ham right in the middle of the town. And I'm going to eat this piece of ham. And if God really exists and I'm doing something wrong, I should choke on it. Right in front of everybody else. But if not, then I guess I'm right. She says, why would you do such a chilul Hashem? I said, why would you want to do it? He said, well, what chilul Hashem? Let's see if he cares. There's no God to even care. So he took this piece of ham in front of everybody and he munched it down like there's nothing else. Not only he didn't choke on it, he enjoyed it. Everyone watched. It was an embarrassing scene. And since then, he's been growing and he's getting richer by the day and he makes money and everything's dandy for this guy. So, that really made me kind of lack in my faith in God. I mean, come on. You let a guy do that? Why don't you just prove to him that you exist? So I guess, I don't see that God, maybe God doesn't exist. So I've been a little off. When they were talking, this innkeeper's daughter walks in all happy and jumping up, Daddy, Daddy, I won, Daddy, I won. So he says, oh my God, you won. And the mother comes, oh my God, she won. So the Rav goes, what happened, Mazal Tov? So they go, yes, our daughter, this was in Germany, our daughter was in a contest, a international contest for pianists, and she got #1 place as a pianist. And it's signed by the greatest pianists anywhere. She's an expert piano player. So the Rav says, oh wow, great little girl, that's wonderful. Why don't you play me a tune? She says, I really don't feel like it. He says, what, you don't know how to play? She says, excuse me? What are you telling me I don't know how to play? Can't you see? I have my degree, and she's got it in it's framed. This thing has been signed, my diploma has been signed by the greatest piano players of all time. And you're telling me I don't know how to play? I don't have to prove anything to you. So the father says, Rabbi, come on. I mean, she's tired. She doesn't want to do it. She's already got her certificate. She knows how to play. She says, I don't know if she knows how to play. She says, well, that's what the certificate says. So what? She says, well, that's what the certificate is for. It's signed by the greatest piano players. That's the whole point. So you don't have to go around prove yourself. So Rav goes, aha. She says, so God did the same exact thing. One time, he proved to the entire world that he exists. And once he did that, he made a little tiny certificate called the Torah, where he dictated all that happened, all the miracles, where everybody saw. And it's signed by the hand of God because we know God gave it to us. And if you read the Torah, you will see all the miracles that even happen today. The promises that the Torah makes that will happen. And they happen today. You see the miracles. So every little Joe Schmo idiot that comes to test God, God doesn't have to show him that he could actually take care of the world. That was the point. So every guy that goes, hey, you know how to play the piano? Show me. You know how to play? Yeah, play a tune. I don't want to. My certificate says I know how to play the piano. I don't have to prove myself to every single guy that thinks that he wants to test me. That was what God did for us. That's what we have as a Jewish nation. Our whole being is, as a Jew, Yetziat Mitzrayim. God took us out of Egypt. Why? Because that was the time, the climax of when God proved the entire world, I'm the creator and these are my people. And we have that responsibility, and therefore, it's day and night that we say, Zechirat Yetziat Mitzrayim, the remembrance of the Exodus from Egypt. Why? Because that's who we are. That's how we became a people, and that's how we proclaim God as the creator. And that's what we pass down generation to generation. So yes, it's not once a year. It's every single day. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.